Okay, so, like, we all kind of love a good horoscope, right?
Yeah.
But today, we're ditching those surface-level predictions and diving deep, deep, deep into the heart of Capricorn.
We're talking about really understanding this complex, often misunderstood sign.
So if you're listening, chances are you're either a Capricorn yourself or, you're fascinated by one. And trust me, by the end of this deep dive, you're going to have some serious aha moments.
We're going to uncover what makes them tick, those hidden depths.
Yeah, it's way more than just ambition and workaholism.
Right, there are layers here. But first, let's quickly get those Capricorn basics on the table.
Capricorn 101.
Exactly. We're talking earth sign, practical, grounded.
Just like their fellow earth signs, Taurus and Virgo. They keep it real.
Always. But like with an edge, right?
Oh yeah, definitely an edge.
And a huge part of that edge comes from their ruling planet, Saturn.
Saturn. Okay, tell us more about that.
Well, Saturn is all about discipline, responsibility, structure even. Think of it like this. Saturn provides those essential boundaries that actually help Capricorns thrive.
Interesting. So it's not just about being strict or rigid. It's more like those boundaries create a sense of safety, a framework for them to build their lives on.
Exactly. So for any Capricorns listening, does that resonate? That you're the responsible one, always planning, always the one your friends rely on.
The one with it all together, at least on the outside.
Right. But remember how every strength has its flip side?
Oh, for sure.
So that dependability, it can sometimes, tip into being overly controlling.
Makes sense. And that discipline we were talking about.
Yeah, that can sometimes make them seem, well, a little inflexible, maybe even rigid.
It's all about balance, isn't it?
Finding that sweet spot.
Speaking of balance, let's talk about that goat of fear imagery.
Yeah.
You know how our source mentions this whole thing about a goat with a fishtail facing its fears head on. What's that all about?
Right. It's a powerful image, isn't it?
Definitely.
And it perfectly captures the inner world of a Capricorn. I mean, think about it. They often appear so in control, driven, always going after their goals. But beneath that surface, there's often this undercurrent of fear.
So it's not that they're pretending to be put together. It's more like they're constantly battling those inner anxieties.
Exactly. It's like a constant push and pull. And that's why understanding a Capricorn's relationship with fear is so key to really getting them. It's not weakness. It's their way of, well, protecting themselves.
Like they build those walls to guard their hearts.
Which, let's be honest, can make them seem a bit distant.
A little hard to get close to, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So how does this whole fear thing play out when it comes to love?
Oh, that's where it gets interesting.
Because we've all heard those things about Capricorns being super loyal partners, ride or die, but also,
Intense.
maybe a lot to handle is a nicer way to put it. Why is that?
It all goes back to that fear of vulnerability, right?
They don't open up easily.
Not really. I mean, they crave connection deeply, but letting their guard down, that's a whole other ballgame.
So they need to feel really secure to let someone in.
100%. Emotionally secure, practically secure. That foundation has to be strong.
Okay, so for anyone listening who's trying to make it work with a Capricorn, this is crucial information, right?
It is. It really is. Because, and this might surprise some people, that need for security, for knowing where they stand, it's not just in romantic relationships,
No, totally. It bleeds into all areas of their lives, right?
Big time, especially with family.
Which makes sense because, our source says that family is huge E for Capricorns. Those traditions, those deep-rooted connections, they really value that stuff.
It's their foundation, their bedrock.
Okay, so that makes sense. But then it also says that they can be, strict, kind of dominant with their family and loved ones. So how does that all work together? Where's the line between honoring tradition and being a little too controlling?
Right. It's not always a super clear line.
Right.
But for Capricorns, you got to remember, it always comes back to those values, their values.
Okay, so
family, to them, represents that stability, that continuity, all the things they hold dear. So upholding those values, even if it means, being firm or setting those boundaries, that's how they protect what matters most to them.
So it's less about being a control freak, more about safeguarding those core values and traditions that make them feel grounded.
Exactly. You got it. And yeah, let's be real. Sometimes this can lead to some friction, especially if you're someone who, values your independence or doing things your own way.
Right. Definitely.
But here's the flip side. It also creates this fierce, ride or die loyalty that you don't find with every sign.
Interesting.
When you're in a Capricorn's inner circle, really in it, they will move mountains for you. It's just, going to be on their terms.
Yeah, I could see that. Okay, so speaking of Capricorn terms, Can we talk about this legendary work ethic? I mean,
Yeah.
is anyone surprised that career and money are kind of their jam?
Right. That whole workaholic stereotype, like, it exists for a reason, you know?
It does. It really does. But like everything else with this sign, I'm guessing there's got to be more to it.
Oh, there always is, for sure. It's not just about, climbing that corporate ladder or making tons of money, though. I mean, they're not going to complain about those
Right.
things.
Nobody's complaining about those things.
But if we look back at our source here, it highlights all those other qualities too, like honesty, dedication, this amazing perseverance they have.
Okay.
These are folks who find this deep sense of meaning in their work, in building something that lasts, something they can be proud of. It's more than just a job to them.
It's like they're building a legacy, right? Like something with staying power.
Yes, 100%. It's that Saturn influence again. Thinking long term, playing the long game, building something brick by brick.
It's about creating something of substance, something that can stand the test of time. And honestly, in this world of like instant gratification and everything being so disposable,
Tell me about it.
don't we all need a little bit of that Capricorn work ethic sometimes?
100%. I think we could all learn from it.
Right. Okay, now before we wrap this whole thing up, we have to talk about the Capricorn guys versus the gals.
Yeah.
Because our source, it points out some interesting key differences between the two.
Yeah, it does. And this is where I think things get really, really fascinating because, I mean, both Capricorn men and women, they're ambitious, they're driven, but it's how they express those qualities.
How they go after what they want.
Exactly. And how they approach their relationships, especially, that's where you really see the difference.
Totally. Like it says that Capricorn men, they tend to focus on more of those like tangible goals and
Right.
career success, providing for their families, those kinds of things.
Mm,
Whereas
mm.
Capricorn women, while they're equally ambitious,
Oh, yeah, they are.
they also crave that deep emotional connection. They want it all.
And this goes back to what we were saying earlier about security, remember?
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's just as important to both men and women, but they might, express that need in different ways. A Capricorn man might demonstrate his love by, like, building that secure foundation for his family, the practical stuff.
Being the rock.
Yes.
Oh.
While a Capricorn woman might be seeking that same security, that same feeling of safety, but through, like, real deep emotional intimacy.
So it's like, in their own way, they're both looking for that same sense of safety and stability that lets them really thrive.
Okay, yeah, that's fascinating. It all comes back to that security thing, huh?
Right. It's like their superpower and their Achilles heel,
Well,
Totally. So we've covered a lot of ground here, all those Capricorn strengths, their kind of shadow sides, how they approach love, family, that whole power through mentality when it comes to their goals.
yeah.
But there's this one little line in the source that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
It says Capricorn is turned to the past. What does that even mean?
Yeah, I see why you'd latch onto that. It does sound kind of counterintuitive, right?
Totally. Like this ambitious, forward-thinking sign, and they're hung up on the past.
Right, you'd think it'd be the opposite. But see, it's not about, like, dwelling on the past or letting it hold them back. It's more about learning from it. Understanding those foundations that their present, their future are built upon.
Okay, so who better to create a strong future than someone who really gets those lessons from the past?
Exactly. They're not stuck there. They're drawing strength from it. Think of it like they're taking the best of what's come before and using it as a springboard for something even better, something new.
It's like they're taking those old school values, those traditions, and giving them a modern twist.
Exactly. It's not about being stuck. It's about using that Capricorn wisdom to navigate the present, the future, all of it.
Which actually makes me wonder, because our source, it talks about all these good things about being, turned to the past. But what happens if a Capricorn, doesn't deal with those inner fears we talked about? What if they gets stuck in those shadows?
Ooh, that is a great question. And you're right, it's not something the source really digs into. But if we think about everything we've learned about Capricorn so far,
It's like those unresolved fears could really mess things up.
right, they could manifest in all kinds of unhealthy ways.
So instead of all that, grounded, responsible energy,
Which we know they have deep down.
they become more about control, about self-protection.
Exactly. It's like those classic Capricorn traits, that need for control, that rigidity we talked about, maybe even pessimism. Those could all be signs of a Capricorn who's letting fear make decisions for them.
They're not running this show, their fear is.
Exactly. And that's why it's so crucial for these folks to face those inner demons, to really get to the root of where those fears are coming from.
Because it's only then they can really step into their power.
100%. That's when they tap into all that incredible strength, that resilience that makes Capricorn such a powerhouse sign. But they got to deal with the shadows first.
It's like they got to confront the darkness to become their best selves.
Powerful, isn't it?
It is. And honestly, that's a good lesson for all of us, right? Whatever our sign is, we've all got those shadows lurking around in there.
Oh, for sure. It's just about acknowledging them, working through them so they don't end up running the show.
So for anyone listening who's a Capricorn or, maybe you just love one,
Or love to hate one sometimes.
hey, we've all been there. But really, I hope this deep dive has given you a whole new perspective on this sign.
Because there's so much more than just that ambitious workaholic.
Right, like layers on layers. We just scratched the surface here.
Just a little peek behind the curtain.
Exactly. But hey, if you want to keep exploring, we've got those links for you in the show notes.
Yeah, our source material is seriously fascinating stuff.
So until next time, keep diving deep, my friends.